What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Seahawks Forever. I am Dan, former sports reporter turned podcaster. Been doing this for a while now. If you're new to the channel, if you would hit subscribe, you could see how close we're getting to 12,000 subscribers. It's a Seahawk channel, so 12 is meaningful. Picked up quite a few subscribers over the last couple of days, which tells me that many of you are ready to turn the page now. The Super Bowl is in the rearview mirror. Can you believe it's been 8 days since we brought home the Lombardi Trophy? It's time now to look ahead to the offseason. An offseason which is here faster than we're usually used to, right? We are literally 3 weeks away from the start of free agency. The draft itself is just about 10 weeks away. The combine's only a week and a half away. It comes at you quick when you win the Super Bowl. And we're going to get into that here today. We're going to kick things off with a 3-round mock draft. I've got some rules. We're going to do it live. We're going to work through the simulator together. And depending on how many people we get in here and how much participation, I'm going to let you vote on who to take at each spot. So I've got some rules, got some things set up ahead of time. I've made a couple of free agent decisions so that we can try to be as realistic as possible in what the draft might look like by the time it gets here. Let's get into it. This is Seahawks Forever.
Welcome to the Seahawks Forever podcast. In-depth analysis on everything. Welcome to the Seahawks Forever podcast. In-depth analysis on everything Seahawks. And now, here's your host, Dan Viens.
First time doing this, I suppose. Little peekaboo there during that. I want to let you know about the merch store. Got a sale going on right now. T-shirts are $16. Great quality. This is a really, really reputable company. You're going to love just the quality of the merchandise. Like the T-shirts are soft and they fit the way they're supposed to. The hoodies are really, really soft. Check it out if you can. If you don't want to memorize or repeat that web address that you see there, it's linked down below in the description. So all you have to do is click it. And this bad boy showed up there today. Brand new design for the dark side. Exclusive design, custom, just for you. Check it out if you would. Also, in the meantime, do not forget, just because football season is over, about my boys down at Fast Fashion Brewing in Soto on First Avenue. Matt Storm and his dad, Randy. Matt runs the place, and they have the best craft beers in Seattle. One of their Pilsners, nationally recognized recently as one of the best beers in the country. They also make really great homemade pizzas, and they have all sorts of stuff going on. And in the works for baseball season, they do a couple of beer styles that are for the Mariners and for baseball season. Great place to stop in or out. They've got a big game room in the back that you can play around. They got a big screen TV. You can watch TV. It's a really cool vibe in there as well. It's down on First Avenue, right next door to Hooverville. So check those guys out if you would, please. Now, have an update. I was in contact again with the YouTube people today after being dark for 5 or 6 days. Sent them a bunch of screenshots. We've identified exactly what the problem is and why I can't connect StreamYard to YouTube. Should be corrected shortly. Should be something that's pretty simple from their end now that it's been identified. What it means is if you're commenting on the YouTube channel, I can't show those comments on the screen like I normally do, but I'll read them out, shout them out when I get super chats. And then obviously with your feedback in who you think that we're going to, who you want us to take in this real-time draft. If you're watching this on Twitter though, and right now there are a handful of you that are, you can reply on Twitter and it will populate into StreamYard. So I can show those comments on the screen. But Corey Coleman, Peter Gohawks, PNWWWW, Hank Murbach, Abitasma Prime, Optimus Prime. I got it. Welcome Peter Gohawks with the super chat, $4.99 donation. Really appreciate that. He says, remember, you got to force the trade through and click the left box to start the draft. Just a heads up, Gohawks. He remembers the last time I did this. We're going to use a different interface though. I do have a couple questions here already from Optimus Prime. Did I nail it that time? Question: is the rumor of Albert Breer true, or are we really trying to trade for Max Crosby, Dan? Thank you for asking me. You might have seen some of my tweets about this. as a former journalist, I get really, really pissed off with the modern state of journalism. In fact, I hesitate to even use that word anymore because it's not journalism. There's no attempt at objectivity on Twitter. And there's all these people that are trying to act as reporters. Now, I've been a reporter, a professional reporter. I do have some sourcing. And so there are times where I'll share that information with you, but I never misrepresent it. I never try to pass someone else's report off as my own. And I always try to be clear about when it's my opinion based on connecting dots and reading tea leaves and just kind of knowing how these things work. That's where a lot of my speculation comes from that actually ends up being correct. It's just connecting dots, right? But these aggregators today, they all have these big accounts. Y'all are consuming it and clicking on it, and they're making a bunch of money doing it. Some of them do it better than others. Some at least do the bare minimum. And after they write what makes it sound like it's their report, they'll at least tag the source and their Twitter handle on the end. They don't really give them credit. They just kind of throw it in there. But then there are the really bad ones. And I saw one of those today where, and I'll get to that. Set that aside for a second. What he's talking about is Albert Breer about 2 hours ago came out on his podcast and said he was talking about the Max Crosby trade market. And he mentioned the Seahawks and talked about him for about a minute. It immediately spread through Twitter like wildfire that the Seahawks are still interested in Max Crosby and may try to trade for him, that they're still interested. That's the way it was framed, what Albert Breer said. And one of these aggregator sites took that and took Breer's name completely out of it and said, hot off the presses, basically, reportedly the Seahawks are in talks to try to acquire Max Crosby. Like they just went from point A to point Z without any attribution, without really listening or reading correctly. Albert Breer never said, I watched it 3 times and transcribed it. He never said the Seahawks are still interested in trading for Max Crosby and they've been in contact with the Raiders about doing so. That may be true, but it's not what he said. He was speculating that the Seahawks would make sense. And then he went on to talk about how after they won their Super Bowl in 2013 and got back-to-back in 14, that they were still aggressive going out and getting vets, trading for Jimmy Graham and Percy Harvin, signing Michael Bennett. That's what he based it on. And then he said they had cap space. He never said, from what I'm hearing, the Seahawks are still trying to trade. He didn't. And so just be really careful when you're out there at reading what's actually being written. And then it's easier than it ever has been. Just take 10 seconds to try to confirm it somewhere else, right? Type in Max Crosby trade and see if Albert Breer or Jeremy Fowler or Jordan Schultz or one of those guys pops up, right? Mike Garofalo, Tom Pelissero, all those guys. Wait for somebody legitimate to confirm it. So that's my little rant there, my little soapbox, my tangent, as people have come to tell me. Trenton Puckett is here. Good to see you. Evan Brown. Is it the former Seahawks offensive lineman, now Arizona Cardinal, Evan Brown? And just a GZ. Thank you. Likes my tattoos. This one, I've told this story before. This one here on my inner forearm, I don't know how well you can see it. It's Marshawn, right? It's beast mode. I can't stand on my head to show it to you the right. Personally endorsed by Marshawn. He was dining at the restaurant that I used to have a big role in. And a couple of years ago, he came into the server station to ask his server about paying the bill. And I was standing right there and I was like, hey, Marshawn, let me show you something. We used to have a bunch of Seahawks get in there. So we always had a real chill relationship with him. But his exact words were, dope tat, bro. So he approved of the tattoo of himself. Haven't gotten to show Steve Largent this one yet. But at some point, maybe I will. Okay. Peter Gohawk says, if no trade down, I'm thinking corner, nose tackle, edge, offensive line in that order. Okay, that's solid. Here's how I'm going to do this. Because one of the things that I struggle with sometimes in mock draft season, but I really struggle with other people doing it. I know sometimes, guys, I was talking to my lady about this today. Like I'm really trying to not be the cranky old man on his porch that gets irritated by everything. But it's hard when you spend as much time on Twitter as I do. And I wish I didn't have to, but for my business and to grow this, I have to. It's kind of hard to avoid it. It drives me crazy how people overreact to mock drafts in February when the real draft is at the end of April, and we have no idea what the roster is going to look like on day one of the draft. We have no idea. Last year at this time, we didn't know that Sam Darnold was going to be the quarterback and that DK was going to be traded and JSN was going to be number one. We didn't know, right? We didn't know we were going to sign Cooper Kupp and DeMarcus Lawrence. We didn't know that. So you don't know what the needs are. If I've had so many people come at me and go, you hear a lot of this. This is the way a lot of people react. I'll take an edge at 32 because I believe that edge and corner, so far from what we can see 2 months out, the strength of those classes kind of lines up with where the Seahawks are drafting at the back of each round. So there's some good corners and good edge players that are still going to be there at 32. Offensive line, I kind of feel like it's a hole. We can talk about that anyway when we get there. But you see what I'm saying? It's like you can speculate out and go, okay, I think they're gonna draft a young edge player this year, whether they sign a veteran or not. So that's okay. We can kind of set that aside as a need, no matter what. Corner, I feel the same way. If they bring Josh Joe back or even Reek Woolen, probably looking to still draft one, and it's a good class, maybe you still take one at 32. Best player available, right? Maybe it's a defensive tackle. Even though if I were to put that out there on Twitter right now, I would get so much shit for taking a defensive tackle because we don't need one. We have a good group. Well, that's not how football works either. Injuries are a thing. Age creeps up on you, etc. And so what I've done is I came up with a hypothetical and some parameters. So this is what I'm doing. First of all, McVirus 6185 stepping in with the super chat, $4.99 donation. Draft season. First time I got to catch a stream in a while. What's the rough percentage we trade down? Well, let's talk about that real quick. First, I'm not doing any trade downs in this one, just to keep it simple. We're just doing the first 3 picks. We don't have a 4th or a 5th, just to kind of kick draft season off. And we'll do these every single Monday, mock draft Monday, but we'll do them different each time. Next week, we'll trade down. And maybe we'll look at trading up, right? We'll play around with some different scenarios. So there has to be 2 to tango. You got to find a partner, right? I think, given that we don't have a 4th and a 5th, John Schneider would love to trade down from 32, trade out of the first round, and add some additional picks. And there's 2 things I want to say about that. Number one is you got to find a partner. This is generally considered to be a weaker draft, even weaker than last year. Not very many blue chip talents at the top, if any at all. Deep, you're going to hear this a lot. Deep throughout the first 100, you're going to find starters in this draft. Last year, Daniel Jeremiah said it was a starters, not stars draft. I think he'll say more of that. I think he'll double down even harder on that this year because it feels like more of the same. And so finding someone that feels like there's value in moving up in a weaker draft might be hard to find. Now, it only takes one. It only takes one Atlanta Falcons to do what they did last year, right? And come up to get James Pierce. Oh, goodness. How's that going to work out? Giving up a future first and all of that. Now they only have like 4 picks in this draft. And they've already fired their coach. That was a decision, wasn't it? It certainly was. Of all the decisions, that was one of them. So there's that, right? You have to find a partner. I do think Schneider would want to trade down. And then we talk about need. So here's what I came up with. And this is kind of how I think it's going to go, to be honest with you. So I've got the Seahawks re-signing Kenneth Walker, re-signing Rashid Shaheed, re-signing Josh Jobe, and Kobe Bryant, who I've kind of been 50-50 on. But for the purposes of this, we're going to say that Bryant is signed too. And then Drake Thomas and Ty Okada, I think I don't think they're exclusive rights. I think they're just strictly restricted free agents. So I think they get deals done with all of those guys. I think Reek walks. I think Mafe walks. And then we're talking about extensions. Derek Hall's eligible. They're going to try and get Spoon and JSN done this year. But that doesn't impact the draft. They're under contract. They're not going anywhere. So does that kind of change your outlook as we look ahead to the draft, right? Like edge, still a need. Maffe's going to walk. DeMarcus Lawrence, 32 years old. Uchenna's closing in on 30 and has a big cap hit this year. I think they're going to extend it. I think they're going to add a couple of years to his deal and keep him around. And then there's Derek Hall. Beyond that, it's Connor O'Toole. It's Jared Ivey. Is he an inside guy or an outside guy? Edge is a huge need. And this is a strong edge class. Edge, I think this year is going to be one of those positions, kind of like they handled guard last year, where they might kick the tires on some guys in free agency. I don't think they'll go big. I'm going to talk about that on a show in a couple of days. Look at, the other day, if you haven't checked that out yet, go watch that episode. I looked at all their internal free agents, did contract projections for them all, detailed it out. Go check that out. I'm going to do another companion piece to it coming up soon where I look at outside free agents, guys that might make sense, some value, and maybe one or two big swings. But for the purposes of this exercise, I don't think they're going to do that. So I think they're drafting an edge no matter what. Is it first round, second round? Kind of depends on how the draft falls, right? Corner, if you bring Job back but Reek walks, are you feeling okay with Job, Witherspoon, and Pritchett? Probably looking to get into this corner class as well. So there's two needs that we've identified. You're bringing Kenneth Walker back. You expect Zach Charbonnet back early in the season. We'll see what Kenny McIntosh looks like coming off his second ACL this year. We'll see what Jacardier Wright, the young kid that was banged up last year during the season on the practice squad as well, but showed real flashes in the preseason, still wanting to add there too. So I'm thinking that's a need. And then best player available. Let's remember what John keeps saying. And let's remember the shift that happened in 2021 where he just stopped drafting for need. Not completely. This gets lost in translation sometimes. Need gets factored into their player grades. So they don't ignore need entirely. They don't go purely BPA. The grade on their board is impacted by need. But there aren't any glaring ones this year, except maybe those couple that we mentioned. And so it's just best player available. Best player available at 32 might be wide receiver, which would be weird and it wouldn't make a lot of sense. And honestly, I think that's where that grade comes in, where they'd go, there's another guy that's equal and the need grade's a little higher. Let's go there. But that's my point. Peter Go Hawks, another $4.99 donation. Do you think Darrell Jackson Jr. is a worthy pick at 32, or is he more of a second round pick where we probably won't get him? Pure nose tackles almost never go in the first round unless they have major pass rush upside. And I'm not sure Jackson does. He might. He was double teamed almost all the time at Florida State. Got to see him for a little bit at Mobile. He came on Wednesday, maybe it was just Thursday, after being at the Shrine game, practiced for one day, didn't get a lot of reps, didn't play in the game. So we saw a little bit, saw him take on some one-on-ones, and he could be dominant. Those guys typically go in the second round. Think Tavondre Sweat, right? Think Jaron Reed. He was known as a run stuffer that didn't have a lot of pass rush upside. That's why he fell to the Seahawks in the second round that year. So a guy like that, if he's there at 64, totally in play, even though a lot of people might not think that we need a nose tackle. And after seeing this scheme for the last 2 years and how successful it's been stopping the run without one, I'm not so sure they do. But anyway, we'll see. We'll kind of see how it goes. So those are my parameters. And then, as I said, we're not going to do any trades. And then you guys get to vote among the players. So what we'll do is when I get to each pick is I'll just kind of show you what's on the board, 5, 6, 7 spots in either way. And then you guys can vote. If there's a tie, I'll break the tie, right? But I'll break it between what's been voted for, not I won't just pull one out of my ass. Okay. Now I'm not going to use PFF's simulator this time. I wanted to use PFN's because one of the things I like that PFN did this year is that they added in a feature where you can choose your big board. And I'll show you that here when we get this started. So we're going to go 3 rounds. We're going to go fast. And then right here, you get this drop down menu. They have their own big board, which in years past, I've always thought was the most inaccurate. Even a month before the draft, they would have guys available in the hundreds that were going to be first or second round picks and vice versa. But now you can choose consensus. Doesn't say where they're pulling the consensus from, but the more the better, right? The more lists that you pull from, the more accurate that big board is likely to be. We have ESPNs, which would be like Matt Miller and Jordan Reed and those guys. We have PFFs, and sometimes farther out from the draft, I like to use their board because I think it's more accurate. They keep up more constantly throughout the college football season, giving guys grades. Agree with their grades or not, they don't just wait until draft season and then try to rally and set up their board. And then The Athletic, which would be Dame Rugler. So let's go with consensus here. And then we pick Seahawks and we go solo draft, and it'll just kick in and get us down to 32 pretty quick. And let's just scroll up just so you can see. We're going to reject these trades because we're not doing those, just to see kind of how accurate this is. Fernando Mendoza 1, Arvell Reese 2, Ruben Bain, David Bailey, Jordan Tyson, Carnell Tate, Caleb Downs. I think this big board's good. That looks kind of like all of the chalk first round drafts that we're seeing. So we get down to 32, and here is what's available. Next, this is their next best. If you can see it right here, but I'll read it off. Defensive tackle Caleb Banks, Florida. Linebacker C.J. Allen, Georgia. Edge T.J. Parker, Clemson. Corner Colton Hood, Tennessee. Safety Dylan Thieneman from Oregon. Defensive tackle Christian Miller from Georgia. Corner Chris Johnson from San Diego State. And then Michael Thompson's favorite, R. Mason Thomas, edge Oklahoma. And then Zion Young at 40, edge Missouri. That's as far down as I'm going to go. I think that covers a lot of bases. And you can see what I'm talking about, right? That the board right now and the positional strength of the board right now seems to kind of line up with where the Seahawks pick. They have multiple edge and corner options here in the first round, including a couple of guys that, like, I'm not sure Colton Hood is there at 32. Zion Young, I put it out a mock the other day. I had him at 32. Really impressed with him in Mobile. He absolutely looks every bit the part of a Seahawks edge, but he had a DUI recently. There might be some other character concerns. I usually don't dig into that until a couple of weeks before the draft when I narrow down my list, but that may be something to consider. So I probably wouldn't say that we draft him here today. But let's see what we've got. Okay, Corey says Jennings Dunker for right guard. He's not on the board. So we were going to stick to this within about 10 spots of where we're at. Now, that's odd. I think Jennings Dunker is going to go before 32. He was the Gray's Able of this year's Senior Bowl. He was the best offensive lineman there, especially kicked inside the guard. He's a scheme fit. He's just the character stuff, the intangible stuff. It's all off the board. He might struggle to stick at right tackle in the league, but you kick him inside the guard. I think he's a first-round pick, so I don't think we have any shot to get to him. Let's see. Okay, so so I've got, let me see. Let's do this. We're going old school, guys. I'm busting out the pad and paper. Okay, so got one for Banks. Got one for Zion. Got one for Brian. I don't know who Brian is. There's no Brian on the list. Got one for Hood. We're all over the place now. I've got two for Parker. Okay, got another one for Zion Young, despite what I just said. Got three for Hood. Got one for Chris Johnson. Two for Chris Johnson. Another one for Parker. All right. Cut off the votes. And let me count what we've got so far. Another one for Chris Johnson. Okay, don't give me two names. Just give me one. Okay. We're up to three for Banks. Another one for Chris Johnson. Another one for Young. One for Anthony Hill. Very, very athletic inside linebacker. Another one for Zion Young. You guys don't care about character, apparently. Another one for Hood. Let's see. Someone says Hood looks semi-sus at the Senior Bowl. Not from what I saw. Another one, Hood. And then one more for Young. All right. And the polls are closed. We have a tie. We have 5 votes for Hood, 5 for Zion Young, and then Chris Johnson and Caleb Banks were right there. So it's it's between Zion Young and Hood. And because of what I said 5 minutes ago, we're going to go Colton Hood because it does seem like I'm hearing in the last couple of days that there may be some character things with Zion Young. Need to dive a little deeper into that. If that's true, then, the Seahawks aren't going to touch him if they're concerned about him. Someone said I'm frozen. Am I? Am I good? Okay. All right. So we're going to go Colton Hood. And I think this is a great situation where somebody's asking about arm length. So let's, we're not going to know arm length yet. They don't do that until the combine. He's 6'1", 195. Started his career at Auburn before he went to Tennessee. I really like, hold on, just moving some things around here so I don't freeze if I have too many windows open. He was great at the Senior Bowl. The one rep where he got beat for a long touchdown that kind of got some attention online, he played it perfectly. Absolutely perfectly. Mirrored the receiver, flipped his hips, turned his head around, was right there, and the guy just made a great play on the ball, and he just missed it. He was the best corner there, and he was one of the few guys there that looked like a legit first rounder. I don't think he lasts until 32, but if he does, I think that's one of those picks where you just turn it in and you call it a day. So where is he? Let's take Colton Hood right here. Boom. So we got a corner. So how do you feel about Devin Witherspoon, Josh Jobe, Colton Hood, and Nehemiah Pritchett? So now we get down to the second round. PFN says our needs are corner still. Center, fuck you. Jalen Sundell's our center long-term. Guard, yeah, I get it, but I think the replacement's on the roster. But hey, best player available, and then edge and running back. So here's what we have available. And I know, I probably already know. Oh, hey, the Raiders, look, Clint Kubiak sniped Jennings Dunker from us right in front. See that? Boom, right there. And the Rams took Emmett Johnson right in front of us too. Some people think he's the second best running back in the draft. I don't agree. Ooh, and the Niners took Derek Moore out of Michigan, an edge right there. Okay. So starting, let's see. I'm going to type this in here. Starting now, and then I'll do from there until I cut it off. Here are the names. Emmanuel Pregnon, Oregon, guard. D'Angelo Pons, slot corner, Indiana. Gabe Jacobs, edge, Illinois, saw him at Senior Bowl. Darrell Jackson Jr., talked about him earlier. Jadarian Price, the backup to Jeremiah Leavitt, Notre Dame, but some people feel he's the second best running back in this draft. Kamari Ramsey, safety, USC. David Igbinison, corner, Ohio State. Connor Liu, center, Auburn. And Jacob Rodriguez, inside linebacker, Texas Tech. I'd go one more spot. I really like Julian Neal, corner out of Arkansas. I think he's ranked too low at 73 there. But we already took a corner. So those are the guys. So let's see. And I haven't studied Pregnon, you guys, but I know a lot of you are really, really high on him. I've seen some reps of him mauling. I haven't studied his pass protection yet. I'm way behind on this because the Super Bowl, the Seahawks had to go win the damn Super Bowl, and it really kept me from my draft prep. Let's see. Okay, one for Price. One for Pregnon. One for Jacob Rodriguez. Another one for Price. Let's see. Another one for Jacob Rodriguez. One for Gabe Jacobs. Two for Gabe Jacobs. Three for Gabe Jacobs. One for Joe Jackson. Another one for Jacobs. Another one for Jacobs. Wow. Okay. Another one for Pregnon. Then we got Price. Then we got Jacob Rodriguez. Someone says is a reach in the second round. I highly disagree. I don't think he's there at 64 under any circumstances. He was one of the best players on the field at the Senior Bowl, former quarterback, had 7 forced fumbles. He takes the ball away. He had 2 interceptions. He had a pick six, another interception, and a fumble recovery in one practice. He was one of the fastest players on the GPS the whole week. He's really instinctive. He can play Mike or Will. I think he'd be a perfect Mike McDonald inside linebacker. I think you're nuts for thinking that that's a reach. Okay. Now I got to do this. Stop. Okay. Nothing after that. So let me go back to where I was. There we go. Okay. 2 more for Pregnon. Another one for Gabe Jacas. 2 more for Jacas. How do you guys even know him? Pregnon. Another one for Jacas. Carson Beck. I see you, Hank. Nice. Another one for Jacas. It's a landslide, you guys. Gabe Jacas out of Illinois. Here's his scouting report from PFN. 6'3", 260. He headlined Illinois' defense in 2025, notching 11 sacks, 13 and a half tackles for loss while earning all Big Ten recognition. He brings a power-packed profile at 6'3", 260 and flashes eye-catching initial burst, hand power, and strength finishing moves through contact. For much of his career, he thrived from a 2-point stance as an outside linebacker, where his mobility for his size stands out, but his strength and leverage suggests he could offer even more impact as a 3-point defensive end in a 3-4 or 4-3 front. He's a well-rounded edge with strong knockback power. His ceiling is capped by a lack of quantifiably elite top-end traits, but that's this draft. So lines like that, especially in the second round, that's just kind of this draft. He might never be a game wrecker, but he's explosive, strong, and nuanced enough to operate as a quality 2-phase and 3-down presence. He sounds like a Mike McDonald guy. And the one thing that I saw from him in Mobile is he looked like a guy that had a chip on his shoulder. Didn't think he was getting enough attention. Incredible motor. Never took a play off and just went 100 miles an hour all the time. So that's a cool pick, you guys. Good job, because I haven't been taking him in a lot of mocks. So that's kind of cool. All right. I can kind of already see where I think this is going to go. This is a nice little group here. So here's our picks, right? Just to remind you, we've got Colton Hood, the corner out of Tennessee at 32, and Gabe Jacas, the edge at 64 out of Illinois. So I'm going to start here. Hang on. Start. Okay. Zakee Wheatley, safety, Penn State. Jonah Coleman, running back, Washington. Chandler Rivers, corner, Duke. Ted Hurst, wide receiver, Georgia State. Small college kid, really had a nice week down in Mobile. Austin Barber, tackle, Florida. Will Lee III, corner, Texas A&M. Katron Allen, running back, Penn State. Garrett Nussmeier, quarterback, LSU. Tarian York, linebacker, Texas A&M. Anthony Lucas, edge, USC. And we'll go down a couple more. Damon Claiborne, running back, Wake Forest. There's your Carson Beck, Hank. And then Parker Brailsford, center, Alabama. Former Husky, undersized center. All right, you guys. So what do we got? Yeah, I knew how this one was going to go. Do I even need to keep counting? So let's see. Let's go. Already for Jonah Coleman, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then we've got 1 for Lee, 1 for Brailsford, 1 for Hurst, 1 for Damon Claiborne. I mean, it seems pretty obvious you guys want Jonah Coleman, right? Yeah, this is a big favorite of Bryce Coots. He's been pounding the table for Jonah Coleman for a long time. Thinks he's a perfect fit for the scheme. I mean, that's pretty overwhelming. We got 8 votes for Coleman out of the first 11 votes tallied right out of the box, right off the bat. So now Misfit has a good point. Coleman 1,605 college snaps, kind of worn down in my opinion, or I'd have picked him. Love him as a player regardless. That is a concern. I mean, that's something that you have to take into account. This is what we ended up with. Colton Hood, corner, Tennessee. Gabe Jacas, edge, Illinois. Jonah Coleman, running back, Washington at 96. I think that's a nice job. And the thing that I'll say is this, again, consider the draft class. Like, I don't know that you're going to find a Riley Mills in the 5th round this year. Granted, he was only available there because of injury. Same with Torrey Horton. I don't know that you're going to find, like in what we found in the 30, a guy like Jalen Milroe. We're not going to be looking for a quarterback, but that kind of a talent, right? I kind of think this is what this draft is going to bring you. I would expect Colton Hood to compete for starter reps as a rookie at 32, but Gabe Jacobs, you're probably just hoping that he gets into the rotation as a rookie. Same with Jonah Coleman. Maybe with a really good camp, he's Walker's primary backup until Charbonnet comes back. But he gives you good depth long term. He can catch the ball well. He's played in the outside zone. Like Jed Fish teaches that scheme. He's worked in that coaching tree in his past. I think that's a pretty cool draft, you guys. Nice work. I like it. I have no notes except for this. You got to check out the new Sleeper app. If you haven't already, it's the best sports app out there for a number of reasons. And it's not just football. I know football season's over, but there's other stuff. You can choose who you think is going to be the first pick in the draft. You can choose who you think is going to win the Super Bowl next year. But it doesn't matter what sport you like. Baseball season is just around the corner. And you can pick player performance. And but the best thing of all, they have fantasy sports, daily fantasy sports. Their news feed's the best in the business. And they have an industry-leading play-by-play real-time tracker as well. And right now, they're going to give you $20 just for signing up. No obligation, no deposit needed. If you want to make a deposit beyond that, they're going to match your first one up to $100, 100%. Use the promo code FOREVER. Terms and conditions do apply. Currently legal in 25 or more states. But all the stuff that's not games of skill, you can play that anywhere. Check out the Sleeper app today. And if you're a steak eater like me, and in particular an Omaha steak eater, which my family has been for over 50 years, you got to check out their President's Day sale. USDA certified steaks. They also do burgers and dogs and side dishes and desserts and everything else. But their specialty is those USDA certified steaks. You can get any cut you want. They're going to deliver it to your front door in a cold pack, individually cryo packed. And right now you're going to get 50% off site wide at omahasteaks.com. And then when you go to checkout, use that promo code FOREVER. They're going to give you an additional $35 off. So check out omahasteaks.com. That's OMAHA. Yeah. The way that Peyton Manning used to bark it out at the line of scrimmage.com. 50% off site wide, $35 additional at checkout if you use the promo code FOREVER. All right, let's take some questions. Let's just talk draft. You guys, again, I am way behind on this. This next week, this week was kind of all the looking back, and then of course the offensive coordinator news over the last couple of days, took a lot of our attention. But going to be turning full time to the draft, and I'll be trying to catch up on watching some tape. Really glad I went to the Senior Bowl this year, even though it was kind of odd once we realized we were in the Super Bowl to be down there. Like, nobody cares. Nobody wanted to hear us talk about what we were seeing on the field. And so we just kind of gave a little brief 10, 15 minutes. Then we talked about the Super Bowl the whole time. But it did give me exposure to a lot of these guys that I just didn't have a chance to watch a lot of tape on. But yeah, Max Bailey says, the homers have spoken. Honestly, if it were me, I think that 3rd round pick is a sweet spot for a running back, but I would have gone Katron Allen from Penn State. I just think he's a little bit more explosive, home run hitter, not as many miles on the tires, as Misfit pointed out, because he alternated with Nick Singleton there at Penn State, who also is going to be available right in that same kind of range, although he's coming off a broken foot that he suffered in Mobile. But that's a guy that I would have taken slightly ahead of Jonah Coleman. John McGrath says, in Coots we trust. I mean, he has been on Coleman for a long, long time. Misfit says Coleman's the 3rd ranked running back on the board I'm looking at. So there's that. There is no consensus on the running backs. I've seen them all over the place. I've seen the kid from Nebraska as high as 2nd, but then I see a lot of Price at 2nd. I've seen Coleman anywhere from like 3rd all the way down to 6th or 7th, kind of all over the place. Some of that might get dialed in at the combine. really excited to see a lot of these guys go. Hank says, love Jordan Tyson. We'll never get him, though. Yeah, he's being mocked in the top 10 in some places. The HHG said, did you do a mock if we trade out of the first? We'll do that next week. This first one out of the gate for Mock Draft Monday is just going to be no trades. But we'll do this every Monday if you guys want to. And let's see. Yeah, Max Bailey says, I'd be very happy with any running back in the third round. I've just been eyeing Coleman for years. Yeah, Hank says, there's so many players I like. I hate how I can't remember names. Yeah, I usually don't get totally, well, usually I'm dialed in by now on like the top 100. I couldn't go past 3 rounds right now. That's where my study is. Coleman has that Justin Forsett in him. He's a lot bigger than Forsett, isn't he? John McGrath says Dunker will go much higher by the time the draft gets here. Yeah, they're way low on him. I think he's a first rounder. I do. And as much as you have heard me say, and you'll continue to hear me say, that I think it's a bad use of draft resources to take another interior lineman this year, because they've drafted more of them in the last 5 years than any team in the league, and they've still got a bunch of guys on the roster. They got Bryce Cable-Dew and Mason Richmond and Christian Haynes, and I think Cable-Dew is the starter. I think it's only a matter of time, and I think that time might be as soon as August. That being said, you take the best player available, and if Jennings Dunker is there at 32 from the study I've done so far and from what I saw in Mobile, and I was right about Gray Zabel. To me, he was this year's Gray Zabel. He was the best offensive lineman there, bar none, once they moved him inside to guard, going up against a good defensive line class down there. And he was great in run blocking, pass protection, the motor, the get off, the attitude, the personality, all of it. He really is this year's Gray Zabel. And despite everything I just said about how I think the interior offensive line answer is already on the roster, if Jennings Dunker is there at 32 and they take him, I would do cartwheels. And I don't do cartwheels. Out of curiosity, True Soul says, how is Allen in pass protection and as a pass catcher? He looked good in drills. That's all I have to go by. Haven't really dug into his tape as deep as I would like to, or as I will in the next couple of weeks. But, we watch for that stuff in Mobile, and both he and Singleton, even though they weren't asked to do it much at Penn State, they look pretty natural doing it. So we'll see. Every single running back that ever comes out of college, you could just add that line to a scouting report, needs work in pass protection, right? We were told that Travion Henderson was an elite pass protector coming out of Ohio State last year. The Patriots take him in the second round, and he struggled at times. It's a big jump, and it takes a while for those guys to learn that, certainly. It hurts my heart some poverty team is going to get David Bailey. Yeah, he's a monster. Short arms, but, man, he makes up for it with get off and speed. He's one of those guys, Brandon Kane showed me this big cut up of him getting a bunch of sacks, and they were all ghost moves, where he just dips under the guy's arm. I don't know if you can get away with that as much in the NFL. Remember Mike Green last year? Led the nation in sacks with 18, and then dominated Senior Bowl workouts Tuesday and Wednesday to the point that he left Mobile after that, ends up going 17th or something like that in the draft, the most explosive get off and speed rusher in the draft. What did we hear from Mike Green as a rookie, right? It's a big, big jump for some of those undersized edge guys sometimes. That's why I like Jacobs, though. That's why I think it was a good pick. He's compact, he's strong, he's thick, he's stout, but he's got some explosion to him too. McVirus asked if there's any free agents that are noteworthy. It's not a good free agent class. It's really not. The other thing that complicates it is this. Like today we talked about Bradley Chubb on Twitter because he was released by the Dolphins. And we know the Seahawks looked into him at the deadline last year. We know that he played all 17 games coming off a really bad knee injury in 2024. We know that he had 8.5 sacks. And I watched the tape today, and I put a cut up together, and I put it out on Twitter. And he still looks like he's got some burst and that he moves pretty well. And he's not even 30 years old yet. I mean, it feels like Bradley Chubb's been around forever. But he's had 3 ACL injuries in his lifetime. And the reason that Bradley Chubb's not going to be a Seahawk is because the timing's wrong. By releasing him, he becomes a free agent immediately. And the Seahawks can't do anything in the free agent market until they have a good idea of who they're able to retain and who they're going to lose of their own free agents. It would be criminal for them to go give Bradley Chubb a 1-year, $10 million deal right now and eat up that cap space without knowing for sure if Walker's coming back, if Job's coming back, if Shaheed's coming back and all of that. So you kind of have to take care of that stuff first. So I don't think they'll be in on any of these big name releases. And usually those guys are being released now for a reason too. There's injury baggage or what have you. The more I look at this, I don't think there's going to be a big splash this offseason. I'll do an episode as a companion piece to my internal free agent show I did yesterday, later in the week, looking at some possibilities and kind of wondering and doing some hypotheticals. There's some guys that would be worth investing in, but I just don't think it's going to make sense. I think their plan is to run it all back, bring as many guys back as possible, and then augment it in free agency once they know what they've got with a couple of guys that just fit. Rotational guys. They're not going to need to go out and get a starter at any position in free agency this year. And so this might be one of those years where we actually benefit from some comp picks in 2027, which is a good plan because have you heard what they're saying about the 2027 draft? It's supposed to be like a generationally good draft. And so if Boye Mafe goes and gets $16 million a year and Reek goes and gets $18 million a year, that's 2 third-round picks probably. Maybe a third and a fourth in 2027 in addition to what you already have. That's a good draft to stock up in. So I don't think they're going to be aggressive in free agency at all. I really don't. And I don't think they need to be. We just won the Super Bowl with the third youngest roster in the league, and we have the opportunity to bring them all back. It's really exciting. Really, really exciting. Seahawk Daddy says, hey, I'm the GM of the Seahawks. When does my paycheck get here? What's the old political saying from like 20 years ago? It's like, son, I know John Schneider, and you're no John Schneider. Yeah, Beast5415 says, excited for all your content leading up to the draft. I appreciate that. John McGrath says, Linderbaum and Humphrey, 2 wildly different cases. Humphrey is going to be a guy coming off a down year. He's closing in on 30. He was an all-pro in 2024, but this year not so good. He's going to be released. Is he a 1-year bounce back prove it deal? Maybe he makes sense. Does he have enough left in the tank? I haven't dove into his 25 tape yet. Maybe he's a guy that comes in just as a veteran for some depth if the price is right. Linderbaum just doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. He's going to be $20 million a year. He's going to reset the center market. He's not a perfect player. He's a beast in the run game. He's not the best pass protector in football. And at that dollar value, give me Jalen Sundell all day long for what he costs. I think Sundell is going to make Pro Bowls at some point in his career. I really do. I think he's the long-term starter, and he gets even better if you upgrade the guy next to him to his right. And so if I'm correct, if it's Bryce Cable-Dew, and he's so much more athletic, the pass protection should be better than Bradford. There's obviously going to be growing pains, but you improve the right guard, and I think Sundell is your center for the next 10 years. I really, really do. So Linderbaum just doesn't make sense. Let somebody else go overpay him. I think the Ravens are stupid for letting him go, but the Ravens used to be thought of as one of the smartest organizations in football. I'm not so sure lately. They've made some very curious moves. John says Schneider will circle back to Crosby, but I don't know if he gives them what they want for him. I agree. He'll check in on him. He's pursued him for over a year. We know that. I just don't know if they have the ammo. The reason it would have made sense at the trade deadline is there was some interest because of Pete being there in potentially Mafe and Reek, thinking that they could tag them or sign them long-term and keep them in the program after having them for half a year. I think Oakland, Las Vegas, with where they are, it's the worst roster in the league. You're probably, if you're moving Max Crosby, and I don't think it's a given that they do, if you're moving Max Crosby, you probably want a combination of picks and players. Now, what I do find interesting, and this is going to sound so weird, you guys, when I say this out loud, but the Seahawks kind of have a surplus of interesting young offensive linemen. And the Raiders are trying to fix that offensive line, and Kubiak's familiar with these guys. If they don't think Jackson Powers Johnson is a starting guard in that scheme, and there's some question as to whether he is, then Oluwatimi's a starter quality. Maybe he likes Christian Haynes as a guard in this scheme. Maybe he likes Mason Richmond, right? I don't want to give him cable due, but you see what I'm saying? Maybe throw one of those guys in there and then, obviously picks and what have you. So I think he'll check in. I don't think it's going to make sense. And I want to see him do it without a big splash like that. I don't repeat the mistake of 2014, 2015, giving up valuable draft capital and a key player in Max Unger to go make some splash you don't need to make. And I don't think that's their mentality now. I don't think McDonald thinks that way. I think he would like one pass rusher that can kind of just win on his own. We really don't have that guy right now, but I don't think he's willing to overpay for that guy. Let's try and find him in the draft, right? Maybe it's the first round pick even. Maybe it's a Derek Moore. Maybe it's a Zion Young if the character stuff checks out. Maybe it's Joshua Josephs. Is that his name? The kid out of Tennessee that I've just started studying, and he's starting to get mocked at the end of the first round. There's some guys there that are interesting that you might be able to get there that give you a little something different, little different look and feel off the edge, a little more juice maybe. We've got a lot of speed to power guys, but we don't really just have like a pass rush moves merchant. It'd be fun to add a guy like that. R. Mason Thomas is a guy that Michael Thompson sings the praises of. He's undersized, but man, is he quick. And maybe he just offers something that's a little bit different that would appeal to Mike McDonald. Plus my understanding is the character stuff with him is off the charts too. So, yeah. Brienne says, I don't think Humphrey would be a good influence in the locker room. One thing we don't do at VMAC is drama and unwanted attention. I'm not aware of Humphrey's off-field stuff or other intangible stuff. I'll obviously look into that, but no one's going to know that more than Mike McDonald. And if that's concerned, they won't even touch him. The flip side of that is if we find out, if he's released next week and we sign him 2 days after that, then you can rest assured that McDonald thinks that he's not going to be a problem in the locker room because they just don't tolerate that stuff. Right? It is a deep wide receiver class seed, Dragons, which might come into play if we lose Rashid Shaheed. Now let's talk about Shaheed for a minute, because there's a lot of talk on social media that he's going to get to the market and he's going to end up getting paid $20 million a year, which is ridiculous. And a lot of it's wishful thinking from opposing fans. Like Raider fans think that Shaheed is theirs. They think that he has this long history with Clint Kubiak. He doesn't. It's a year and a half. And he spent the first 4 years of his career playing for one of the worst teams in football after being an undrafted guy and overlooked. And now he was just traded for by a Super Bowl champion. And he said on the day that he was traded for, or the day he was introduced, that it's done deal. This is where I want to be. We'll get it done. He reiterated those comments at the Super Bowl after the news came out that Clint Kubiak had accepted the job with the Las Vegas Raiders. I don't think Shaheed's even getting to the market. I think he gets signed before March 9th. But if I'm wrong and all of a sudden he wakes up one day and his agent convinces him that, like, you've got to get us to the market, we've got to get to the open market, and someone decides to give him $20 million a year, okay, then we're back in the draft, and it's a good wide receiver draft. There's some really, really cool receivers in this draft. So I'm not going to lose sleep over it. I'm confident it's going to get done. And really all of our toughest decisions are that way. If Ken Walker suddenly decides that he wants to cash in on his MVP, which one game, guys, winning Super Bowl MVP doesn't get you an additional $3 million in AAV as a running back. It doesn't. But let's say he decides all of a sudden that he wants to get to the market and just see what's out there, and somebody comes in and gives him 3 years, $60 million, which would be ridiculous. But let's say they do. It'll hurt, but I immediately will then pivot to two things. A, let's say that happens. Let's say they lose Walker and Shaheed. Well, there's $35 million you don't have to spend on those guys, or $30 million that you can spend elsewhere. Go get Spoon and JSN extended, get Derek Hall extended. Maybe you bring Reek back then. But you also immediately pivot to a very good running back draft and a very good receiver draft and a very good corner draft. So the spots, the guys that we have that would be attractive free agents to other people if they hit the market are all guys. It just matches up with the draft this year in kind of the strength of the classes. So I'm not there isn't one player that's going to make or break this team if we lose them. It's just not. Yeah, Misfit says $14 million a year. Shaheed seems sane. Go check out the episode I did yesterday or 2 days ago on all the internal guys. I mean, lots of graphics, you guys. I spent 2 days building that show. So go give it some views. And I get into all this and I show spot track and PFF projections and try and find a consensus. And then on Shaheed, I look at comps myself and I come up with a contract comp, give him a little bit of like a 10, 15% bump for his return ability. Like I get into all that stuff. And then I make predictions of who I think is going to stay and who I think is going to go. So yeah, Misfit 4777 says, I love picking 32. Yeah, it's the best place to pick. It is. Misfit says Walker, can be tagged. Absolutely. Yeah, the tag came in at $14.5 million. It was higher than expected. But when you look at James Cook's deal, Kyron Williams' deal, $12 million, let's say, Walker's, somewhere between 12 and 14, you're kind of in that range. Whereas, for example, you can't tag Rashid Shaheed because he's probably worth about $14 million a year based on just about everything else that's out there, maybe 15. But the franchise tag for receivers is over $28 million a year. The discrepancy there makes it a no-brainer. It's why the Ravens aren't going to tag Linderbaum, because the NFL is stupid and they lump all their offensive linemen in together. And so even centers get tagged at the average of the top 5 offensive linemen in football. And you have all those high-priced guards and tackles that it's just dumb. It's really dumb. So they can't even think about tagging him. It's ridiculous. Brian Meyer says Kubiak could pull Shaheed. Maybe. He's been with him for a year and a half. Like this, I think that's overblown. They had half a season together in New Orleans and he broke his leg. Then he had the half season here. He never got him ingrained in the offense. He never got him really dialed in. It's not like they have this long history together. Shaheed played 4 years for the worst team in football, or one of them, and he just experienced a Super Bowl. You think he wants to go back now to the worst team in football and do another rebuild when he's got a chance to cash in here at a team that wants him and loves him, and he has stated on the record, I want to be here long-term? For an extra couple of million, you want to go play for the worst team in football and go through a rebuild? I just think that's being completely overblown by people. Just like everybody thought Kubiak was going to take our entire offensive staff with us. And what's he taken so far? One guy. Maybe he'll take one more. Maybe two more. Frisman Jackson might go. Rick Dennison might go. I think that's it. Everybody thought he was going to take the whole staff, and not to pat myself on the back and hurt myself doing it. But I was telling you from the beginning that wasn't going to happen. It just wasn't going to happen. So, yeah, we're going to be okay. And I really like the Brian Fleury signing. I did a whole breakdown on that yesterday, both in the live show and then in the breaking news segment. So if you want my deeper thoughts on that, then check it out. Also wrote about it on Substack today too. You can find that down below. And why I kind of wrote the Substack piece from the angle of, hey, I hear some critics out there, some people that don't like this move. They're afraid of the lack of play calling experience. And then I kind of go counterpoint and sort of try to undercut that argument a little bit and give some more depth and insight into exactly how big of a role he had with the 49ers in game planning, constructing plays, putting the call sheet together, and then even calling plays on game day direct from Kyle Shanahan's mouth. So check that out if you would. All right, guys, let's put this back up again and show it to you. This is we got Colton Hood, corner out of Tennessee, Gabe Jacobs, edge out of Illinois, Jonah Coleman, running back Washington. Again, I think the only thing I would have done differently if I had done this on my own is I would have taken Katron Allen instead of Jonah Coleman. But I think this is solid, and I think it could look very much like what we see in the draft, or you could just flip it around. Because I think there's enough quality depth that if you take an edge guy at 32, maybe you prefer Mason Thomas or a Derek Graham, not Derek Graham. God, now I'm forgetting names already. Derek Moore out of Michigan. Then maybe you get him first. And then at the end of the second, maybe you get like sometimes Chris Johnson falls into that range, or a Julian Neal out of Arkansas, who's a big, long, physical press corner who I really like. There's some other guys there too that'll be there at 32. Maybe you flip those guys around. But I think some combination of edge and corner in the first 2 rounds makes so much sense, even if you bring back Josh Jobe and you extend Chenna and all of that. I think it makes sense. So I think that's a lot of fun. Thanks for being here, guys. There's about 1,000 of you in here. Thank you for bearing with me without being able to show comments on the screen. Hopefully I'll get an answer in the next 48 hours. My experience dealing with these guys is now that we're at this phase where they ask for screenshots and everything else. It sounds like we're on the 1 yard line, and I'm going to run the football, and we're going to get this done. We're going to cross over and get into the end zone. Tomorrow I'll have a native video that I will upload. I'll do the outside free agents episode. I'll finish that off. And then tomorrow night, I'm going to be on the Hawks Eye with Bryce Coots. I think that's like, it's late. I think it's like 7:00 Pacific time or something like that. But check out Bryce's channel, the Hawks Eye. And he's been on vacation. I think he's been out of town a couple of days and are doing some other things, some coaching things. So we're going to talk a lot more about the offensive coordinator situation. And hopefully by tomorrow, we will have some clarity on when Fleury's going to be introduced. Can't wait to see that press conference. But also hopefully some more clarity on I just want to officially hear that Jake Peetz is going to stay. I don't think there's any question Justin Outen is staying. It was reported today that John Benton is staying for certain. That's been reported for a couple of days now. Those were the really important ones. I'd like to keep Peetz. I think it'd be really smart, especially when you consider that Fleury doesn't have a lot of pass game experience in his pro coaching career. I think that'd be a real nice marriage. Maybe we'll have some official clarity on that as well. Seahawks Daddy says, Dan Viens for governor. I want no part of politics. Thank you very much, even though I think I would do a great job at it. One of my favorite stand-up comedians, Brian Regan, one time when I saw him live, said he would never want the job of president because here's how every single day starts. Maybe it's not the case now with the current guy, but here's how every day starts when you're the president. Someone comes into your room at like 5 a.m. and they nudge you and they go, Mr. President, I need you to wake up. Mr. President, we got problems. I need you to wake up. I don't want anything to do with politics. No, thank you. John says, run, Dan, run. Yeah. I really don't want any part of running either at this part in my life either. I'm going to try to avoid that too. Thanks, you guys. Follow me on Twitter at Seahawks Forever. Check out the merch store and this guy right here, the new Dark Side merch, t-shirts, hoodies. Man, I love this stuff. Got my Super Bowl shirt. A couple of them. Still waiting on a hat. So that's all good. Anyway, we'll see you tomorrow. Subscribe to the channel. So close to 12,000. Help me get there if you're not subscribed already. Until next time, forever and always, go Hawks.